Jim, thanks for making the time.
My privilege.
Well, sir, look, I'm getting to speak to you at a very interesting time. You're an award-winning veteran sports commentator with a great history and knowledge of the world of boxing. And we're speaking at a time where it seems lines are blurring slightly, if nothing else, in the sense that mixed martial arts fighters are entering the traditional boxing ring. And I wonder, are the two compatible, really? And if you have any concerns about it?
Well, it's sport, it's entertainment, it's fun and games. Concerns are really minimized by the fact that the world isn't going to rise or fall on the subject of whether the heavyweight champion of the world is somebody who spent his whole life in boxing or a mixed martial arts person who has lived in a separate culture and now crossed the line to get into boxing. That's not exactly a life and death question for global society. So no, I don't have any particular concerns about this. This is entertainment. And Ngannou's performance against Tyson Fury, whether that was great Ngannou or bad Fury, we don't know, but it creates interest and curiosity. And Anthony Joshua is constantly now involved in a proxy war with Tyson Fury for prominence among British heavyweights, and it creates an opportunity for Joshua to score points for himself by doing better against Ngannou than Fury did, and also make a good deal of money both for himself and for Ngannou, who has had a spectacular and romantic rise from being lost in the sand mines of Northern Africa to getting to where he is now. That's, a really heroic tale. So there's a lot of intrigue in it. There are legitimate questions as to, again, whether what happened in Ngannou versus Fury was bad Fury or great Ngannou. And with the help of Anthony Joshua, we probably are about to find out.
Right, so I'm going to tap into your knowledge there, Jim, as we are speaking just ahead of two high-profile heavyweight fights going to be taking place in Saudi Arabia over the next month or so. And for a lot of boxing fans, and even those who may not know that much about it, do give me the significance now of what's happening with these bouts and why they're significant, having Anthony Joshua against Francis Ngannou now, and then Tyson Fury against Alexander Usyk.
Well, there was a time 15, 20 years ago when if you said to British boxing fans, you are going to have two legitimate heavyweight champions of the world in succession, and they will wind up tilting against each other in the public arena for prestige, British boxing fan would have been thrown into paroxysms of unexpected ecstasy by that. No one might have seen this coming a long time ago, but here we are with Anthony Joshua, who is a former legitimate heavyweight champion of the world and did a lot to build honor and prestige for British boxing, both as an amateur and a professional. And then Tyson Fury, who is this very unusual physical specimen with a very unusual kind of folklore British background. And again, both of them rose to the top of the heavyweight world, and they're still active in the ring at this time. And now you have the wild card of an MMA performer who stepped in and, against all odds and expectations, actually took Fury to the brink of defeat. And in the eyes of some people, like Joshua, should have gotten the decision over Fury. And naturally, they are moving toward each other. Fury by fighting Usyk, the man who twice defeated Joshua, and Joshua by fighting Ngannou, the man who took Fury to the brink. It's ideal competitive theater, and no one knows for certain how it's going to go.
Well, Jim, I know you're known for giving great analysis, and I know you know these four fighters very well, as you sort of illustrated here. And I wonder how you rate them and what you think each one might have in terms of a particular strategy if they're to find the path to victory.
Well, Alexander Usyk's strategy for dealing with larger, ostensibly harder-hitting heavyweights is clear and simple. He boxes, and he is a Really great pure boxer. He has movement. He has craft and technique. He showed it in both of his wins over Anthony Joshua. So if Fury can handle Alexander Usyk, he does something that Joshua was not able to do. Joshua is a pure boxer with legitimate craft and in the past proven knockout power. He couldn't find Usyk. That doesn't mean that he won't be able to find Ngannou, who's an entirely different kind of target. Ngannou is a diamond in the rough. He's somebody who has come from MMA background. Generally speaking, MMA fighters going into the ring and fighting with boxing rules and boxing surroundings against boxers have been up against it. See Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. But that doesn't mean it's always going to be the case. And Ngannou came a lot closer to succeeding against Tyson Fury than almost anybody in the boxing world would have given him a chance to do. So again, was that bad Fury, distracted by his public image, distracted by his wealth, distracted by the folly of creating and participating in a vanity-driven reality television project? Once you're doing reality television, you have stepped across the line into unreality. And so there's every reason to believe that Fury was massively distracted in the months leading up to his date with Ngannou, that he took for granted that as a boxer with boxing rules, he would have the advantage against Ngannou all day, every day. And maybe he didn't prepare or scout what was coming in the right way. Ngannou gets advice from Mike Tyson. People forget that Mike Tyson wasn't just a physical force. He was trained by a brilliant boxing craft trainer, Customato, and he understands the game as well as anyone in his position could. So he was in position probably to give Ngannou very valuable advice. My understanding is that Mike is not as omnipresent in Ngannou's training camp now as he gets ready to fight Joshua, as was the case before the Fury fight. And whether that means anything, again, we're about to find out. There are mysteries in both fights, Joshua versus Ngannou, and down the road, Fury versus Usyk. And those mysteries only get solved one way. The two guys get into the ring.
The Fury versus Usyk fight was postponed at a late stage because Fury got a nasty cut above his right eye and during training. Now, I wonder what sort of impact do you think it has mentally and emotionally to a boxer to have to postpone a fight like this after training so hard for it?
Well, it's a big impact, and it leaves the possibility that, the cut becomes a vulnerability or a weak spot going into the fight against Usyk. And by the way, it's on the right side of his head. Usyk is a southpaw, so that is Usyk's power punch side. And there's every reason to expect that Usyk now has a target, and he's going to try to hit the place where that cut has just healed or not healed, whatever is going to be the case, and see if he can bring a bloody end to his fight with Fury. And Fury is probably taking a risk by going forward and seeking to get into the ring with Usyk at this point. Of course, Fury can always stand back behind his height and make the shorter Usyk reach up for him and make it more difficult to hit that spot. But that's a tactical reality that certainly Fury didn't want before the cut came along.
Well, I grew up certainly in an era where there were promoters known perhaps as well as some of the big fighters, Don King being one of them. And now Anthony Joshua's promoter, Eddie Hearn, is making quite a name for himself. And I wonder, what do you make of Eddie Hearn?
Well, I knew his father, and his father was a very prominent and successful British boxing promoter. So Eddie knows the style, Eddie knows the look, Eddie knows how to dress and how to speak at a microphone and how to present in such a way as to personify what he saw in his father and King and Arum to a certain degree, and all the other people over the years who have succeeded in this role, going back to Tex Rickard in the days of Jack Dempsey. And Eddie's a pro. He's proven that, and he has bravely and boldly exploited his connections and his knowledge gained from growing up in his father's household to become, at this moment, I would have to say, the most monetarily successful promoter in boxing.
Well, following on from Hearn, the likes of people like Jake Paul, his brother Logan Paul, and KSI, we have these internet superstars. They've got massive following coming into the boxing ring, and I wonder what you make of that.
Legitimacy doesn't matter. Reach matters. Can you get to the audience? In the world of social media, all values are diluted in favor of the number of clicks that you can achieve. So people choose to watch the polls when they have not or do not watch other more legitimately accomplished fighters. It's just the way the world is working these days. And so real gives away to transparently synthetic in many, many areas of life, and this is just another one.
Jim, I know you've evolved into working with pay-per-view, and you actually provide a lot of analysis. You do social media. Times have changed. You've evolved. But I wonder, you mentioned about it shifting into that era. But what is it like? Give us a sense of what it's like to be at the ringside, where you hear and almost feel the blows as they happen, and you've got the smell of the sweat. It's a totally different. You even hear the trash talk, perhaps. What is it like there?
Well, a live prize fight is, different from any other sports event because in every sport, we're mimicking the fight for survival in this world. Every sport portrays in some way the symbolism of man's quest for survival and success. And in every sport, whether it be soccer or American football or baseball or basketball or whatever, there are conventions, usually in the form of paraphernalia, that make the metaphor functional and believable, so that at the end of the day, the competition means something. Boxing's distinction is that there are fewer of those artificial conventions in boxing than in any other sport. Only gloves and the ropes around the ring are the only limitations within which this combat takes place. And of course, the rules, which have to be enforced, whether assertively or nebulously in some way, shape, or form. But the bottom line is, if you ask which sport more directly mimics and symbolizes what life is, that's boxing. Life is a fight for survival. Boxing is a fight. So people identify with it because it comes closest to mimicking our daily experience without all of the paraphernalia and the conventions that go into football, basketball, soccer, whatever else you're talking about. And therefore it's simpler. And simpler and more direct is sometimes higher impact. Sometimes it's boring. But at the end of the day, if you go to and experience a truly great fight, you're going to walk out thinking to yourself, I don't know that I've ever seen anything exactly like that, or which has moved me in my heart and in my gut in exactly the way as what I just saw. I think that that's what's distinctive about boxing and what ultimately sets it apart over the long haul.
And Jim, I hear your emotional connection to the sport, and I know you described the fighters as your brothers. And I wonder sometimes, boxing being the sport it is, what goes through your mind when these brothers get seriously injured, and in some cases even killed? We know that there's a lot of issues with the risks of boxing. Has medicine kept up with the needs of the boxers, and how do you regard that risk aspect?
Medicine will never entirely keep up with the needs of the boxers because, as in every other sport, there's reason to suspect that sometimes medicine is being twisted in favor of perverting competition. So that's a concern, not necessarily the biggest concern going forward, although there are some people who pay constant attention to it day by day by day. In a world of science, we have to expect that performance enhancement is constantly under the microscope and being used for bad. But I think at the end of the day, I overly glorify myself if I express in some way that the boxers are my brothers. The boxers are my heroes, and the people who paint on the canvas that I was given the privilege of describing, and I owe them a lot. I care about them. I'll never forget, and you talked about the cut over Fury's eye and how it's going to heal and whether it might create a vulnerability in the fight. The worst cut I ever saw came from a heavyweight championship fight. Lennox Lewis's gloved thumb scraped across the eyelid of Vitaly Klitschko. And I remember going into Vitaly's dressing room and looking at his eye and thinking, my God, how is that ever possibly going to heal? But ultimately it did. Vitaly went on to become the mayor of Kyiv. He's got entirely different things on his plate. Only in boxing could something that unpredictable wind up happening. So I love it. I love the fighters. I have an enormous kinship with them. I'm not like them. I don't fight, but I admire them deeply, and I share their passion for what they do.
Jim, I want to warmly thank you for giving us this window to get an insight into the world of boxing through your eyes. Real pleasure. Thank you, sir.
My privilege.